So are you thinking that the dogs will go in there and won't find anything?
I know for 100% they won't find anything.
So what do you make of the fact that they...
The camera fades, and slowly, Daniel Martell's face appears, tired, weathered, and strangely calm. For months, people have been begging him to speak, to say anything about what happened to Lilly and Jack. But when he finally did, in his latest interview, his words sent shockwaves through the entire community. He didn't shout. He didn't cry. He just leaned forward and said something that stopped the host cold. Their mom, she had other plans. Those 5 words reopened every wound this case ever caused. Because for the first time, Daniel wasn't denying, deflecting, or avoiding questions. He was hinting that something deeper, something darker, happened behind the scenes before those 2 children disappeared. During the interview, Daniel's tone wasn't angry. It was defeated. He talked about how the days before Lilly and Jack vanished were strange, how their mother was distant, on her phone a lot, making plans that didn't make sense to him. He claimed she mentioned a big change coming soon, but wouldn't say what that meant. Then came the moment that made even the interviewer pause. When asked if he believed the children were still alive, Daniel looked away from the camera and whispered, "I know what happened to them, but it wasn't what people think." That one line flipped the narrative upside down, because up until now, Daniel Martell had been painted as a villain, the man whose story didn't add up, whose behavior raised too many questions. But now, with this interview, he was turning the light towards someone else entirely, Lilly and Jack's own mother. The public reaction was immediate and explosive. Within hours, social media lit up with theories. Was Daniel trying to shift blame? Or was he finally revealing the truth that law enforcement ignored? For weeks, people had suspected that something wasn't right in the family dynamic, that there were unspoken tensions, arguments, secrets behind closed doors. And now Daniel seemed to confirm that suspicion. But without saying too much, he ended the interview with a haunting statement. You can't pretend forever. The truth, it always finds a way out. Those words hit like thunder. Because if Daniel knows something, and if what he hinted at is real, then this case isn't just about 2 missing children anymore. It's about deception, manipulation, and the disturbing possibility that the person everyone trusted the most might have been hiding everything. The moment Daniel Martell's interview went live, it was like someone dropped a match into a room full of gasoline. Within minutes, clips started flooding TikTok, Reddit, and YouTube, some users defending him, others tearing him apart. The line, "She had other plans," became the most replayed and analyzed sentence of the entire broadcast. For the first time since the disappearance, people weren't just questioning Daniel. They were questioning her. Comment sections filled up with conflicting opinions. You can hear the pain in his voice. That man knows something. He's trying to twist the story, classic manipulation. If she had other plans, what does that even mean? And then came the deeper dive. Online sleuths started pulling together timelines, matching Daniel's claims with previously overlooked details. They noticed how, around the time the kids vanished, their mother had been spotted with a new group of friends, people no one could identify. She was allegedly discussing starting fresh and making unusual withdrawals from her account days before everything fell apart. Daniel never mentioned names. He didn't accuse. But that's what made his words even more haunting. He let silence do the talking. The host later said off-air that Daniel seemed ready to confess something, like he was carrying a secret too heavy to hold any longer. But each time the questions got close to the night of the disappearance, Daniel would pause, look down, and say, "That's not my story to tell." It left everyone frozen. Not his story to tell? Then whose story was it? Overnight, hashtags like hashtag Martell interview and hashtag she had other plans started trending across Canada and the U.S. Podcasters, crime analysts, and YouTube commentators rushed to break down every second of his body language. Some noticed his hands trembling slightly when the host brought up the last time he saw Lilly and Jack. Others pointed out the flicker in his eyes, not anger, but regret. By the next morning, major outlets were covering it too. Local reporters revisited the timeline, while community members from Nova Scotia began demanding answers again. Even those who once believed Daniel was fully guilty started saying maybe, just maybe, he wasn't lying after all. But there was another group quieter and far more skeptical, who believed Daniel was using that interview to plant doubt, that he knew exactly what he was doing, turning public suspicion away from himself and toward the children's mother. Yet something about the way he spoke, the heaviness in his words, it didn't feel rehearsed. It felt like a man who'd seen something he could never unsee. And now, everyone wanted to know, what exactly did he mean by other plans? Was he talking about leaving, hiding, or something far worse? Just days after the interview aired, everything changed again. A small independent YouTube channel released what they claimed was unseen footage, home video clips taken just a week before Lilly and Jack disappeared. The footage was short, grainy, but powerful enough to reignite the entire investigation. In the video, the children's mother is seen pacing in the living room, phone in hand, whispering sharply into it. Her tone wasn't gentle, it was anxious, rushed. You can faintly hear her say, "No, it has to be before next week. I'm done here. I'm not waiting anymore." Those few seconds hit the internet like an earthquake. Was this what Daniel meant when he said she had other plans? The same day, a second clip surfaced. This one showed the kids playing outside, while Daniel, off camera, asks her about an upcoming trip. She replies curtly, "I told you it's handled. Don't start this again." Her words cut cold. There was no warmth, no hesitation, just control. Analysts immediately began dissecting every frame. Lip readers, body language experts, even ex-detectives weighed in, and nearly all of them agreed. The tone of the conversation suggested tension, not between Daniel and the kids, but between Daniel and her. One retired RCMP officer who reviewed the footage said, "That's the voice of someone who's made a decision and doesn't want anyone standing in her way." Suddenly, Daniel's cryptic comments from the interview didn't sound like deflection anymore. They sounded like a warning, one that no one listened to in time. The public's reaction was explosive. People began to question the entire timeline. If she really was planning to leave, where was she going? Did she plan to take Lilly and Jack with her, or without Daniel? And if something went wrong during that plan, could that explain the disappearance everyone's been searching for answers to? Even more disturbing were rumors that investigators had already reviewed this footage months earlier, but chose not to release it, calling it irrelevant to the core investigation. Now, faced with the public backlash, officials refused to comment. But for the online community, that silence said it all. Because in just 1 week, Daniel went from being the man everyone suspected to the man who might have been trying to sound the alarm all along. And if that's true, if Daniel's version of events holds any weight, then the story of Lilly and Jack's disappearance might be darker and far more personal than anyone imagined. Just when the public thought they'd seen it all, a new leak shattered every remaining illusion. Late one night, screenshots began circulating on a Nova Scotia community forum, private messages allegedly between the children's mother and an unidentified contact saved only as DM. At first, people assumed DM stood for Daniel Martell, but that theory fell apart the moment they read the messages. In one chilling exchange, the contact asks, "Are you sure you want to go through with this?" And she replies, "I have no choice. I can't stay here any longer. It's already in motion." The timestamp? Just 4 days before Lilly and Jack disappeared. Within hours, screenshots of the messages went viral. They were reposted, analyzed, and debated in thousands of online threads. But it wasn't the words alone that stunned people. It was what they implied. A decision had already been made, long before anyone realized what was happening. Investigators haven't confirmed the authenticity of the texts, but those who study them closely say the writing style, punctuation, and even the emojis used perfectly match her verified messages from earlier that month. It's almost impossible to fake. And then came the most haunting line of all, a single message she allegedly sent at 11:47 p.m. the night before the kids went missing. By this time tomorrow, everything will be different. It sent chills through everyone who read it, because whatever different meant, it clearly wasn't peace. Daniel's interview suddenly seemed like a puzzle piece snapping into place. When he said she had other plans, maybe he wasn't speaking metaphorically. Maybe he was warning the world that she'd been planning something that ended in tragedy. By this point, major outlets couldn't ignore it anymore. Reporters camped outside the RCMP station. Commentators across Canada called for a full review of the case. And quietly, people started asking the one question no one had dared before. If these messages are real, did authorities know about them earlier and choose to bury the evidence? Even Daniel's critics began to soften. His tone, his grief, his cryptic hints. They all started to make sense. A man doesn't stay silent for months, then risk national backlash, unless he's been living with the weight of something too painful to explain. The final blow came when a journalist revealed that one of the leaked messages was backed up by cell tower data, confirming that it had been sent from the area where the family's last known vehicle sighting occurred. That detail changed everything. This wasn't rumor anymore. This was proof, or something terrifyingly close to it. For weeks, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police had stayed completely silent. They watched the public turn this case inside out, from Daniel's explosive interview to the leaked messages that shook the country. But then, suddenly, they broke their silence. At a press conference packed with flashing cameras and restless reporters, an RCMP spokesperson stepped up to the podium and delivered a carefully worded statement. At this time, we cannot verify the authenticity of the alleged messages circulating online. However, we remind the public that spreading unverified information can hinder ongoing investigations. It was cold, robotic, not a single word acknowledging Daniel's claims, not a whisper about the footage or the mounting inconsistencies in the mother's timeline. To the public, it sounded less like law enforcement and more like damage control. The backlash was immediate. People flooded the RCMP's social media pages, demanding transparency. "Why are you protecting her?" One comment read. Another said, "If Daniel lied, prove it. If he didn't, then why are you hiding the truth?" But Daniel's reaction? That's what truly sent the internet spiraling. Within hours of the RCMP statement, he went live on Facebook, visibly emotional, voice shaking, eyes bloodshot from exhaustion. He didn't lash out or accuse anyone by name. Instead, he took a long pause and said, "I stayed quiet because I was told to. I followed every rule they gave me. But now I see the truth. They were never looking in the right place." He said the phrase "right place" 3 times, each time quieter, more deliberate, like a man replaying a memory that won't stop haunting him. He claimed he had warned investigators months ago about a spot near the old bridge, but that they brushed him off, saying it didn't fit the search grid. Viewers flooded the live chat with messages, thousands of hearts, cry emojis, and comments like, "We believe you now, Daniel." By the time he ended the stream, nearly 600,000 people had watched it live. Clips spread like wildfire. One moment in particular, where Daniel looks off camera and mutters, "She said the kids were going somewhere safe," became the emotional centerpiece of every TikTok and YouTube short that followed. That night, news outlets replayed Daniel's video side by side with the RCMP press conference, showing the contrast between bureaucratic silence and raw human pain. It was a moment everything changed. Because for the first time since the children disappeared, the public no longer trusted the official version. They trusted Daniel, the man they once blamed. And as journalists began digging deeper, whispers emerged that internal RCMP documents might reveal a pattern of overlooked evidence. Details that could prove Daniel's claims weren't just emotional, but factual. Days after Daniel's emotional livestream, the story took a darker and more dangerous turn. Late one evening, an anonymous source sent several files to multiple newsrooms, internal RCMP reports, timestamp communications, and what appeared to be drafts of early case summaries. When journalists opened the files, what they saw confirmed the public's worst fears. In one report dated just days after Lilly and Jack disappeared, there was a direct reference to a credible witness who had seen the children's mother near the old bridge, the same area Daniel had mentioned in his live stream. The report stated that officers searched the location for less than 2 hours before redirecting resources elsewhere due to lack of supporting evidence. That single decision, written in bureaucratic language, may have changed everything. Because right after that note, another line stood out, highlighted, circled, and later redacted in the final public version of the report. Subject appeared nervous, stated she was leaving the province soon. Those words ignited outrage across Nova Scotia. If investigators knew she was planning to leave, why wasn't that treated as urgent? Why did anyone follow up? When the documents went public, the RCMP tried to dismiss them as unauthorized leaks of unverified material. But by then it was too late. The people had made up their minds. Daniel Martell wasn't just a suspect anymore. He was a man trying to survive a nightmare of being unheard. 2 nights later, Daniel appeared once again, this time not on a live stream, but in a recorded video posted to his official page. The tone was different, heavier, quieter, almost resigned. He sat in near darkness, hands clasped, eyes hollow from weeks of pressure. And then he said the words that would echo across every platform. I told them the truth from day one. I told them where to look. But when the truth doesn't fit their story, they erase it. He took a deep breath, visibly fighting emotion, then continued. I'm not perfect. I made mistakes. But I love those kids more than anything. And if they just listened, maybe we wouldn't be here. There was no anger in his voice, just grief. Pure, exhausted grief. As the video ended, Daniel looked into the camera and whispered, almost like a confession. She said it would all make sense one day. But it never did. It never will. The screen faded to black. Since that night, Daniel hasn't spoken publicly again. The RCMP remains under scrutiny. The mother's actions are still being dissected. And the truth about what happened to Lilly and Jack remains trapped in layers of silence, secrecy, and sorrow. But one thing is clear. Every time the system tries to close a case, Daniel's words come back to haunt them. You can't pretend forever. The truth always finds a way out. And somewhere out there in Nova Scotia, that truth is still waiting to be found.